Well, thank you so much for joining us, Michelle, today. Really appreciate having you along and look after all the technical things. Okay, and I see that we are being recorded. Well, I would like to start and welcome everyone to the 2021 Annual General Meeting of the Primates World Relief and Development Fund. And really thankful to see so many faces popping up on the screen now. So lovely of you to join us. We'd like to especially welcome the members of the Youth Council. For the first time, they have full membership in the PWRDF community, and that means they get to vote and have their say at the annual general meeting. So welcome all youth members. I'd like to welcome all other members as well, all our diocesan reps from across Canada. Hello, hello, and hello. So glad you could join us, and thank you so much for your work and support here. I'd also like to welcome all the other board members. I think I'm seeing them all coming on now, so great to have you here too. So board members and voting diocesan reps and youth council are all joining us by Zoom. And so glad that Michelle was able to set up YouTube, and this meeting is also available on YouTube. And I welcome all our supporters that are joining us through YouTube. And just to let you know that this meeting is being recorded. And if any of your friends or of diocesan reps or members that are unable to join us right now, the recording will be available. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge the land that I stand on. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land I presently stand on is the traditional lands of the Nacho-Nyack-Dun First Nation. As we gather today for the virtual annual general meeting of the Primates World Relief and Development Fund, let us all be reminded that we are all on traditional lands of Indigenous peoples wherever we are. We acknowledge with respect the history, the spirituality, and the culture of these lands. We acknowledge our responsibility as treaty members. May our actions be guided by our commitment to reconciliation and to developing a renewed relationship with the original peoples of these lands, one based in honor and deep respect. At this time, I'd like to call upon the Reverend Terry Francis, who is a diocesan rep for the Diocese of Athabasca, for our opening prayer. Thank you.
Yes, let us pray. Loving and gracious God, we thank you for this day and all that have gathered together in your name. We ask you to be with us as we work to fulfill your commandment to love our neighbor. Help us to find the strength and will to reach out to all that struggle with hunger, homelessness, lack of health care, freedom, injustice, or education opportunities. As we meet today, we ask you to walk with each of us, guide us at all times, give us the will to always see your purpose in all we do. When the size of the task you have set before us starts to overwhelm us, may we feel your presence and strength and find the will to carry on in your name. We pray for all that have suffered from the COVID pandemic, for those that have faced drought, destructive storms, those driven from their homes by war and violence, all that suffer from climate change and its effects. May all work for peace and justice. May we strive to find just ways of sharing the goods of the earth, the bounty that you have provided. May we bring an end to exploitation, greed, or lack of concern. We pray for our families, all the people of God, wherever they may be, all clergy and all that work to fulfill God's will. We pray that we can always remember the words you spoke when you said, "Truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. The prayer that I've prepared, simple as it is, touches on two things that have guided my own personal spiritual faith journey throughout my life. And the first of these, of course, is the new commandment that Jesus gave us to love God and to love our neighbors. And the second is the example that Jesus gave us of how to fulfill those two commandments. May we always have the strength to follow where God leads us. With that, I'll turn it back to Valerie.
Masicho. Thank you. Thank you, Terry, for that lovely prayer. And welcome to the PWRDF community and as your diocesan rep. What parish are you in?
I'm in the parish of Athabasca, but we've actually we've become a tri-parish. We've put the parish of Lac-La-Biche, the parish of Northern Lights, and the parish of Athabasca are all working together. We have one full-time position, one half-time position, and I'm there as an honorary assistant. Basically, I'm retired.
Well, great.
And what I've learned is all that means is that I don't get paid for everything I do now.
Thank you, Terry. And a beautiful prayer. Thanks so much for opening our meeting with that. I'd like to call upon now Basil, our secretary, to have a roll call and a declaration of quorum. Basil?
Sorry, Valerie, for the quorum, I will send a link in the chat, and all the voting members, the board members, the diocesan reps, and the youth council members, if they could go in and quickly just fill in that form, it would take like 2 minutes. That is the attendance sheet, and I will just count the voting members present.
Okay, thank you. I guess we'll put you on hold for a minute there, Basil, to get this done.
Sorry, Valerie, can you hear me?
Yes?
Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing here.
Me neither.
Oh, okay.
This is a real stretch for me. I'm not computer literate.
Well, I think I can help you. At the bottom of your screen, you will see a chat box.
Yes.
If you click on that,
Okay.
it will show up on your right-hand side. And at the very bottom, I think there's a link you will see in the chat box that you can click on, and it sends you to a form to put your name in and your position.
Okay. So it says to everyone, do I click on that or just click on type message here?
No, you would click on the message that's there from Michelle David. It starts HTTPS.
Okay. Yes, I click on that.
And that will take you to the document.
Okay.
Save your work. Me.
If all else fails, I will bear witness that Terry was here.
All right. That's good. So should we just wait for Michelle then to count and let us know, let Basil know?
Yes, I think people are still filling it in. So let's just give a few seconds.
All right.
Thank you.
for that. Anyone else experiencing trouble?
Been recorded.
Oh, good. It's coming.
I'm just clicking on the submit and nothing's happening. So I don't know whether you've got it or not. Liz McDonald.
That would be a question to Michelle.
Thank you.
I
Liz.
filled in, I'm a Dowson rep, and yes, I'm attending the meeting. It doesn't go anywhere when I press submit.
So is this Liz McDonald?
Yes.
Yes, so I do see your form and
Okay.
I've received it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Liz.
All right.
How do we get back to the meeting now?
Okay. So how do you get back to the meeting?
Maybe if you go Alt Tab, Terry, on your computer keyboard, and that should bring us back or give you the option to come back to us.
Okay.
Okay, what is tab?
Okay, that's a really good question. Yeah.
Also, at the bottom of your screen, you may see some icons, and if you see Zoom at the bottom of your screen and click on that, that would bring you back to the meeting.
There you
The
go.
little white camera on a blue background.
That's it, the little camera. And I see that Kathy is having some trouble too. Kathy Peary?
Yeah.
Kathy, you can hear you, but have no way to proceed. Kathy, if you're in the chat box, just above your message is the link to Michelle's form to sign in. If you can click on that, it will take you to a Google Doc and you can sign in and let us know.
If Kathy is having issues, I can just manually add her. That's fine.
Okay. Okay, Kathy.
Good. Yeah.
Sounds good. All right.
Terry, are you back on screen, Terry, with us?
No,
Or
I'm
maybe
not.
Michelle can just reach out to you to ensure you're back on as soon as possible.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So Michelle, maybe you can reach out to Terry, and then Valerie, you can proceed, or Basil can proceed. And this is just what we need to ensure quorum, just for the records of ourselves as a charitable nonprofit in our annual general meeting. So thanks for everyone's patience in doing this. And maybe it goes back to Basil at this time, Michelle or Valerie.
Okay, Basil, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. The
Okay.
quorum there are 48 members of PWRDF, and we require a third to be present. That's 16. We have 26 at least, so there is quorum.
Oh, thank you, Basil. And thank you to all the members that have joined. This allows us to proceed. So saying that, we'll take a look at the agenda at this time. And I'd like to point out that the agenda that you have has been revised since September 13th. And on September 21st, a new agenda was sent out. Here it comes. And because it's been revised, we will have to have a motion here from the floor. So what I'm going to do is have you take a quick look at it. Maybe Michelle can just flip through it quickly. There it goes. And with that, thank you, Michelle. With that, we do have a motion made by David that the AGM 2021 agenda be approved as presented. Mark has seconded. Are there any questions? All right, hearing none. Are there any opposed? And with that, if you're opposed, just unmute and say something. Say yes or no. Hearing none, this motion is carried. Thank you. Now we go on to the agenda. And the next item on it is approval of the minutes of the annual general meeting of September 25th, 2020. Again, there's a motion on the floor that the minutes of September 25th, 2020 annual general meeting of the Primates World Relief and Development Fund be approved. It's been moved by Murray and seconded by Lillian. Are there any questions? Okay, hearing none. This motion was already voted on and it has been accepted. So thank you for those that voted ahead with the election buddy. Right, moving along to the next item on the agenda, it's my address, and I'm very honored to present my president's report. Please note that it wasn't in the first mailing of September 13th, but has been sent out on the 21st. I'd like to read it. As I look over my last year's report, I was struck with how we saw COVID as a short-term, single event disruptor. But of course, it's proven to be much more than that. It continues to impact the work of our organization, adding to the needs we are called on to address in Canada and around the world, while at the same time, it is destabilizing many of our time-honored ways of doing things. Nevertheless, I am pleased to report that our organization is responding with tenacity and resilience in the face of these events, much as we would expect a world-class charity to do that has spent the past 60+ years handling development and disaster relief with care and professionalism. 3 years ago, before anyone had heard of COVID-19, your board worked with PWRDF staff to develop a 5-year strategic plan that has helped guide the way through this prolonged world emergency. This has helped set priorities and approaches as the pandemic threatened disruption and the possibility of us all being thrown out of step. The strategic plan included a concept which summed up a basic quality that I believe has helped us direct our work over the past year with amazing results. And that word is nimble. This is not to minimize the disruption to our normal way of doing things, but having a clear vision, a strong framework of strategic goals, and an open, flexible, and collaborative way of working has allowed PWRDF to pivot, keeping eyes at all times on our vision, confident in the faith that our life-changing work was meant to continue. Keeping connected has been a special challenge. With courage and creativity, all the PWRDF community has been forced to pivot, to work from home, to innovate and try new ways of communicating and new ways of doing things that have brought fresh approaches and some very positive results. For board members, the usual rhythm of our in-person meetings has changed. The board has been meeting more frequently and solely online. Board membership has increased, and a new working group focused on fundraising has been set up, enhancing the board's ability to focus on its governance, responsibilities, and sustainability. The Youth Council has pivoted as well, with meeting solely online and embracing podcasts and storytelling to engage others in issues of justice and equity. A PWRDF strengthens its ability to achieve amazing results by building partnerships. Making these work in a time of pandemic has been part of the remarkable story of 2020-21. And to be sure, the needs of our partners have not diminished. In more than 30 countries, our partners have faced the challenge of providing quality health to remote and vulnerable communities stricken by COVID, and maintaining also the advances they've made. They've told us about the lack of vaccines, personal protective equipment, and hand washing supplies for the community health workers and their clients. Lockdowns have had a devastating effect on people's livelihoods and food security. We heard how partners struggled to offer support to people in their communities. South Sudanese refugees living in Kenya in tight quarters without the luxury of clean water and soap. Smallholder farmers in Bangladesh whose crops were again wiped out by flooding. A hospital in Haiti provided with the supplies to stay open and make sure women had a safe place to give birth. Working more often than not from home, PWRDF staff found creative ways to meet these challenges through contacts on the ground and the forging of new funding partnerships. As the pandemic worsened, some of the grants and funding sources of PWRDF that we depend on wound down. Staff responded by finding new ways to lever funds and create new partnerships with foundations and organizations like the Canadian Food Grains Bank. Time and time again, the generosity of Anglicans proved overwhelming. This past year, donors gave an additional $460,000 to support vulnerable communities all over the world with programs to respond specifically to the pandemic. Global Affairs Canada granted us 2 extensions to the All Mothers and Children Count for a further $4 million. Financial giving from Canadians to the work of PWRDF and our partners increased by 9% from the average of donations received in the previous 3 years, in spite of the fact that most services and church buildings were canceled. Diocesan reps have embraced a wide range of creative tools, like including cardboard cutouts of farm animals for online events. Parish reps have been so active online and in their communities. Another example is the freestyle Ride for Refuge activities and the innovative online fundraising, which included e-blast technology to communicate with supporters about the many ways their donations are making a world of difference. When I consider what are the accomplishments of this year and what I have learned is the value of our strategic plan. I'm amazed by the courage, the resilience, and the nimbleness of our staff, our volunteers and supporters to accept and grow with the necessity of connecting and communicating using technology. These tools were used for connecting supporters to the recipients of our relief and development assistance, especially in response to the wildfires, the events in Haiti, and the Vaccine Equity Fund, which encouraged Canadians, when they get vaccinated, to pay it forward. The creativity and the joy our supporters brought to fundraising and educating others about PWRDF was clearly seen in the freestyle Ride for Refuge last year, and again this year, where knitting, singing, painting, plus walking, plus bike riding are activities of choice. PWRDF is ranked in the top 10 of organizations participating in the ride this year. Our funds this year are being directed to the Light for Every Birth initiative. The Light for Every Birth is another amazing accomplishment. This program works to make birthing safer for mothers and babies, and builds on our previous work done in 2016 of installing 50 solar suitcases in rural medical clinics. The goal this year was to install another 50 suitcases in rural clinics. An anonymous donor has agreed to match the funds raised until September 30th, up to a maximum of $100,000. And we are very close. So thank you for lifting up our supporters to even greater generosity. The Indigenous Program Advisory Committee, Ipac we call it, was established in 2020 to review and advise PWRDF on ways forward to partnerships with Indigenous communities. This year, in consultation with the committee, the Indigenous Responsive Program was launched. Indigenous-led communities or organizations are invited to apply for a grant from this program in the amount ranging of $5,000 to $15,000 for programming that supports safe water, youth engagement, community health, and/or climate change. Dioceses that work with Indigenous communities may also apply. And we are encouraging applicants for new initiatives or pilot projects. At the heart of what PWRDF does are the spiritual values that call on each of us to find ways to make the world a more truly just, healthy, and peaceful place. This spiritual dimension was richly fed during the past year when, starting in April, staff launched a Zoom worship session called Praying with PWRDF, which soon became a weekly, then a bi-weekly mainstay. Volunteers joined and are joining from coast to coast and across the world, drawing strength from being together and sharing inspiring words from supporters and international partners, and music and prayer. While this year has revealed and made worse so many inequities around the world, we are immensely grateful for the prayers, the gifts, and encouraging words from so many, all with the goal of making a positive difference in the world. Thank you to Will, the staff, diocesan reps, youth council, parish reps, board members, and all our supporters. I'd also like to give special thanks at this time to 3 people leaving the board this year. Dan, for 9 years on the board as an able treasurer, to Mike, the representative of the Youth Council on the board, for his leadership with the youth, strategic planning, and fundraising, and to Bishop Jenny, who served on our board only for a short time, but whose experience and insights we have deeply valued. We also are honoring at this meeting Susan Heenan, parish rep for St. John the Evangelist in Sackville. Congratulations and thank you all. Of course, this is not where the story ends. The pandemic has done nothing to lessen the need for justice, for health, and peace. And if we are to meet the challenge, we need to plan and maintain our ability to keep our organization flexible, nimble, and agile. I look forward to seeing PWRDF signing on to the anti-racism framework developed by Cooperation Canada for organizations working in development and relief, declaring a willingness to dismantle racism, to collaborate, share knowledge, and learn together. I look forward to seeing the Indigenous Responsive Program take flight, to complement our longer-term partnership with Indigenous communities and organizations. The continued diversifying of fundraising and refreshing of our structure are keys to helping us meet the future. And I look ahead with faith and confidence to see the many ways our organization will work to make the world a place where justice, health, and peace are more than mere words. They are a living reality. Thank you. Are there, since my report came in after the 13th, we will have a motion here made by John that the president's report be accepted. It's been seconded by Mike McKenzie.
Would it be appropriate for me to speak to my motion?
Well, that'd be great, John.
Okay, great.
And I was going to ask if anyone had questions too. So go ahead, please.
Well, okay, I'll start things off. I just want to say a huge thank you to you for your report. That was a wonderful summary of the past year, and I really appreciate that. But I'll also like to kind of add to this because I might not get a chance later on in the meeting. I have to pop out to a wedding. That I want to say a huge thank you to you, particularly Valerie, for your role as president of the board. My experience of you has been that you are a really good leader and show consistency in your leadership and always very well prepared.
It's going to be a couple of minutes. They're doing the financial report. So
okay.
And the other thing is,
you'll have to pull yourself in a bit.
I wanted to make sure that one of the things I really appreciate about you,
when I turn the
and
thing
you've done
over,
this,
we'll see where you're.
I'm hearing some
That's
interference.
us right there.
Yeah.
It's not Charlottetown's fault, John. That's over in Nova Scotia.
Oh, there you go.
They're joining for Sue.
All right. Sue has a history of interrupting me, so that's all right. I'm used to that. I do want to just a couple of quick things, Valerie, to thank you for one of the qualities that I most appreciate in someone who chairs a lot of meetings is the care that you bring to making sure that everybody gets heard. And I think that's really important, that there's never seems to be a rush when you're leading and you give everyone that opportunity. And you also have a clear commitment to the vision of the Primates World Relief and Development Fund. And you're always willing to affirm the good work and ministry of the others around you. And you do all of it with humor and grace. So I just wanted to add those comments to this motion to accept your report.
Can't do it without the board and the support I get from the board. It's wonderful. Thank you. Are there any questions or concerns for my report? Thank you, Cynthia. All right. So the motion then on the floor is that the president's report be accepted. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any opposed? All right, hearing none, it's carried. Thank you. We move now over to the treasurer and to Dan, who will present the audited financial statements. Dan?
I started sharing and I trust you can see. The main driver of getting this meeting in before September 30th is that our financial statements are as March 31st and we want to get it done within 6 months, so we're under the wire. This is the financial statements audited, ready for our discussion. I'm not going to discuss in great detail The first is that we have an auditor, an independent auditor who has qualified on revenue, which you normally do if you can't make sure that every dollar flew to the right spot during the year. But once it gets to our books, it's in our books. Sometimes funds are still at the parish, and that's what the qualification is about, that hopefully some days all treasurers of all those parishes will be forwarding the funds. So this is as clean as you're going to get an audited statement by an auditor, the Penny Legion Chung firm. Penny Legion has been our auditor for about 20 years, he feels. So he certainly understands our business and how we carry out things and got things organized. The first page is called, this is on page number 1. So all those pages before, they don't count. Page 1 is this one. And page 1 shows our assets and our liabilities. The only number I'm going to try and highlight there is at the end of March 2020, the very beginning of the COVID pandemic, the market was going down. We all wondered where we'd be 1 month later. And March 2021, you can see that our net assets have grown over the year because of the depression that happened at the start of COVID in terms of investments that we had in the market. All recovered, now making more money or more funds for us to be able to use. That's the one page I wanted to show. Another page, I'm going to go past this thing, which just shows that we have unrestricted and designated. The designated is mainly $4 million for a wind down if we had to, because of a change in some major way in the funding. Then I have a statement of operations. Here's the year with the COVID started for 1 month, and here's the year for 12 months of COVID. But what's amazing is that first line, parish individual donations, 2020, with the beginning of COVID. Since then, for 12 months of in COVID, parish individual donations. And this is help from parish. This is help from diocesan reps. This is help by all sorts of Canadians reaching out and saying they want to help. And that's why we've grown during the year of COVID. That's the one number I wanted to show. Another number, you have all these detailed numbers, but how about this one? This is the executive committee that I've served on for many years. We used to have a lot of travel expenses to get together once or twice a year somewhere in Canada. We haven't had to get together. And this year, our governance expenses have gone down from 37,000 to 2,400. And yet here we all are online watching this and hopefully participating in the annual general meeting. So those are the two main things, two thoughts I had while doing it. Any other questions? Send me an email. I'd love to get more. Alice will get more. Elsa is the head of our finance and administration area. I think I owe, as treasurer, all of them incredible thanks for their support over many years. So the numbers are done, they're done right, and they're done on time. So that's, I guess, my overview of the financial statements. Of course, like all good auditors, I do want you to read all the notes. So when you get this, you have to read all of this stuff, but all it's doing is explaining more what I've already said. So that's my summary. If there's, I have a motion in front of the meeting, and I believe over to you, Valerie, if you want to read the motion again. Oh, I caught Valerie. You're muted, Valerie.
I got it. Thank you for that. I was. Dan, thanks for your overview. We do have a motion that you made that the audited financial statements for April 1, 2020 to March 31st, 2021 be accepted. It's been moved by Dan, as I said, and seconded by David Harrison. Are there any questions for Dan? No? All right. Well, this motion was part of the election buddy message that you all received, and that motion has been voted on and it was carried. Thank you so much, Dan, and to all the staff and your financial committee for the work you've done on this. And now we move over to the Audit and Risk Management Committee. And I'm asking Basil to present at this point. Basil?
This is very simple. I'm moving this motion in place of Gillian Hoyer, who is chair of the Audit and Risk Management Committee and is unable to be here today. As Dan has said, Brendan Penny-Legion has been our auditor for 20 years, and we're happy with his work. So the Audit and Risk Management Committee would move that Penny-Legion Chung be appointed to conduct the PWRDF annual audit for 2021-22.
Thank you, Basil. And it was seconded by Lillian. And again, this was another motion that you voted on before the meeting. Are there any questions though? All right, hearing none, the motion was carried. And now I'd like to move on to the next item on the agenda, the election of directors and the appointment of honorary associates, and a thank you. Over to Dan and Mark, members of the nominating committee.
And if I may say, we've never had a joint chair situation here. The chair of our committee is unfortunately doubly booked today, and Mark and I are going to try and split the information. I hope I do the ones I'm supposed to do and Mark does the ones he's supposed to do, but that's the way life goes. I'm pleased to announce, I guess, the results. What do you want me to do first, Mark? Let's get you unmuted so you're on the record.
Yes, Dan, go ahead and do the first part announcing the nominated board members and the winners, and I'll thank those who are leaving. Okay, so as we have been doing to now, the election buddy results are in our hands. So we've all voted on the group of candidates. I'm going to do very quickly. The results are we could have 5 of 6, if you recall, and the existing board members that ran for office have all been reelected. I'll just do it very quickly. Lillian Scarar Olson from Amhertsburg, Ontario, not out there on the East Coast. Hello, Lillian. She has a doctorate in health science, international health. She has studied the effect of gender, socioeconomics, and climate change on individuals' health. I'm not sure about COVID on our health, but I'm sure it's in there too, Lillian. And she has a very good knowledge of Indigenous affairs, health issues, and has worked with several members of the UNITA, Inland Ontario group. And she's even been on a CFGB learning tour to Malawi. And recently, Will know this, we're starting a project, we hope to start a project in Mali. And then I had to go through my knowledge of Africa to know the difference between Malawi and Mali. At first, I thought they were just mispronouncing Malawi because we've done a lot in Malawi over the years. But Mali is actually land, it does not touch the ocean, and it's in Western Africa. So that's not where you went. You went to Malawi, didn't you, Lillian? Okay, so that's the first of the 3. The second that ran was Valerie Meyer. Now, Valerie is in the dark on today's Zoom meeting. I think she's trying to hide out up there on my screen. But Valerie's been, she's in Mayo to Yukon on a voluntary basis, but originally was with PWRDF in Ottawa. And on retirement, she and her husband have moved up to Mayo and now moving back. Mayo is interesting posting or whatever she wants, but it's been great for her. She's really brought the spirit of the Yukon to us. She's been a board member since 2015. She's been on the strategic plan working group, the fundraising group, the personnel committee. She's been our secretary, she's been our vice president, and now she's our president, and she's just been elected to try again for what's the next one up after president. I'm not sure, Valerie. She's a participant in the climate change advisory group. She does the Praying with PWRDF bi-weekly event she's been attending, which is, I commend it to any of us who I've done once, hats off. I'm glad you're able to do that on a regular basis. You did take a PWRDF food security learning tour to Cuba. She has shared bread at Sorrento and desserts events in Winnipeg, she says.
And she's a parish rep. She's been a lay minister and a member of the Diocesan Executive Committee in the Mayo Yukon, and she was previously chair of Ottawa's PWRDF diocesan group. So a long history with PWRDF. And you've just heard our laud and honor. Well, also congratulations on being reelected, Valerie. And third, Murray McAdam, who I haven't seen. Oh, there you are, Murray. Murray was happily reelected. He was a staff member, bringing some staff perspective to us from 1987 to 91. He was our info resources officer. So that brings that little extra something to the board table. And over his 6 years on the board, he's had youth focus, if I can say, for many of those years, and is a strong advocate for PWRDF, and has employed his writing skills, including an autobiography that I recently enjoyed thoroughly. So if you've got something to read, or you're looking for something to read, Murray will just send Murray an email and he'll find a way to get you a copy. I hope still, Murray.
Yeah.
So those are the three existing members. Now our new members. First, I will, let me go back here on my page. Shailene Kaparas. Shailene's a diocesan financial director of finance in New Westminster. And for those, I think everyone on the call has been Anglican long enough to know that New Westminster is Anglican speak for Vancouver. If not, we just don't like to say the word Vancouver. So she's bringing the left coast to us. She's been directing the finance group in the Vancouver-based diocesan office. She's has 14 or more years of experience, half because when I last talked it was 14, in accounting and finance and not-for-profits. She has a knowledge of CRA regulations, a knowledge of accounting standards, governance of charities, and let's say a little more international operations flavor than I bring to the board. Let me tell you, she's overseen the operations of Seed Care, which empowers Indigenous ministries and rural village churches and spearheads short-term mission trips to the Philippines. So Shailene brings to us that international flavor, as well as involvement in international operations, and will be a fine supervisor of the that kind of, anyway, it brings extra to the board than what I was, a poor guy down here in Southern Ontario who's a chartered accountant. Anyway, so we look forward to Shailene joining us. And the other successful candidate was the Reverend Canon Martha Tatarnik. Now, a marathoner, I hung on that one. Not many on the board are running that much every day. But Martha has shown stamina and energy and has been involved in so many ways. On her nomination form to PWRDF, she included the following. She's worked with Archbishop Mark MacDonald's Living Waters Group for the past 10 years, has developed partnership, advocacy, and education, and strategic giving with Indigenous Canadians. The Reverend Canon Martha Tatarnik, just in case you hadn't figured it out, is ordained. She's chaired the Continuing Education Fund Committee for the National Church and the General Synod Worship Committee for 2016, that wonderful year when it was here in Niagara. And if you don't think there's a Niagara focus to some of this stuff, you've got to understand I live in Guelph and I was the chair of the Financial Advisory Committee for the Niagara Diocese. Martha has been a committee member for several other General Synod Planning and Worship Committees, and she's been a member of the Hymn Book Supplement Task Force. There's a very strong musical background that Martha brings to us. And she's right now leading a thriving downtown parish in St. Catherine's, St. George's Church. And one of the parishioners there I saw on the website is someone called Walter Asbel, who was a past bishop of Niagara, if not. So if you're the canon and you're leading the parish and the bishop's sitting out there, a past bishop is sitting out there in the pews, you can imagine Martha has some leadership skills. And she has been involved in feeding ministries in the downtown for over 25 years in St. Catherine's. So I think what I'm bringing to you as a result of the ballots, and I think some of those are not items you knew if you've never met these people I tried to give you a little more informal feel of them. It's cross Canada. It is bringing some strange things that we have not had on the board before, and I can't wait to see what the board's able to do with those additions. So that's that far. And Mark, I believe it's over to you.
Okay, then.
I'm sorry. Am I supposed to do the honorary, that lovely group out there in Nova Scotia?
Yes, if you would do that, that would be awesome.
Continuing on. So this is our newest honorary associate. And what can I say about it? I've got notes here that go on and on and on, because the East Coast has always been strong for PWRDF, and this is one more. I'll start. Mrs. Susan Heenan in Middle Sackville, Nova Scotia, has served as the PWRDF parish rep for the parish of that St. John the Evangelist for many years. She's a retired businesswoman who's highly respected within her faith community and in the broader community. Most of what I know about her, I found from the application, but I'm certainly on the board, as John said, and Chris Farrow, we have solid knowledge that this is someone we want to make an honorary associate, and I'm glad that this is going forward. Mrs. Heenan undertakes her ministry of parish rep with much passion and is tireless in promoting the work of PWRDF. Mrs. Heenan is very diligent in ensuring her parish is aware of PWRDF programs and initiatives, and has run many educational campaigns. She's invited Chris Farrow to speak at Sunday services several times. She was instrumental in having Mr. Will Postma, our wonderful executive director, speak at a Sunday service at St. John's as well. And this was the first time the way they wrote it is his first speaking engagement at a parish when he became the executive director. I think it was the first time we let him loose. So now, not to go too far off, Mrs. Heenan, but Will is also available now with Zoom. And during this COVID time, he's spoken at many parishes he never thought he would speak at, because Zoom goes coast to coast while he's sitting in his comfort during services. So any of you diocesan reps who are looking for Will to give a speech, this is a little sales pitch. He's up there. Mrs. Heenan is very active and creative in organizing fundraising events. This is the fun part, so stay awake. Her most recent effort has been the organization of a variety show, with all proceeds going to PWRDF. Prior to the COVID pandemic, this event became a much anticipated annual event in the community and was always sold out. Because of her skill, Mrs. Heenan has always able to attract talented entertainers from within the Anglican family, but also from the wider community as well. These could include young musicians from the high school, a men's choir from the local Baptist church. I didn't know that. Anyway, and one year, a belly dancer stole the show. So belly dancing is a good way to do this, okay? Mrs. Heenan has superior organizational skills, is also very influential, and has a wide social and business network, which is helpful in soliciting support. Now, the Right Reverend Sue Moxley, who's retired, wrote in support of Susan's nomination. So that's one Sue supporting another Sue. So just to understand,
That's right.
It may just be that. So Susan was introduced to PWRDF 19 years ago by her then rector, the Archbishop Ron Cutler. And now she says he volunteered her, as we've sometimes been volunteered ourselves, for the position of parish rep, and she's been at it ever since. She learned the rep role by asking questions, a lot of them by phone, to the office in Toronto. And that's why our office staff answer the phone, because if you can help someone out there represent PWRDF, it's great. So she hopes to continue for 2 more years. She's already thinking how she might train or who she might train to take over. She's enjoyed learning about other parts of the world and how we in Nova Scotia could partner to help. And it's helped her that she can do the planning work from her home. They talked about her promoting the superhero books. Remember that's the stuff for the younger, our godly play leaders, share that material. And for her own ongoing development, Sue went to the annual diocesan workshop and she shared her enthusiasm. In the parish, Sue's initiative, they have learned about goats. Here's another theme that I thought spoke to us. Everyone knows that we can raise money to make goats available for our partners, but even the children know. When that time of year comes, the question is, how many goats this year? Let's see if we can beat last year. And if that isn't a good challenge for a parish. Sue's energy and enthusiasm encourages others to participate in the learning of fundraising and the fundraising. And I am glad to say, in a summary, Mrs. Heenan's dedication and devotion to her ministry of PWRDF parish rep is a model for all. So I hope we all welcome the Reverend, Susan Heenan. Thank you so much. And I wish we were there to clap you on the back and give you a standing ovation, Susan.
Primate's gonna say
Sue?
something.
Would you like to invite Sue to say something?
Sure, but you should know that the primate's sitting here listening very carefully, so be careful what you say, Susan.
Well, thank you very much. It's certainly an honor to receive this prestigious award today. I've been in it for approximately 18 years. As you mentioned, Reverend Ron Cutler at the time was the one that got me into it. I knew nothing about PWRDF because the parish that I've been involved in prior to that didn't have any PWRDF. So he threw these books at me and I read them. And after about a year's time, I decided what I was going to do. And I've been raising money ever since. And without the congregation in our St. John the Evangelist, I could not have done it without them. They've never said no to me, not once. If they did, I'd crush. And so that's part of who I am. And I enjoy doing it. I can do it on my own. Yes, I've developed Parkinson's, and it's very difficult now to be involved like I used to be in the parish. However, having said that, I'm still able to do the work for primates, and I enjoy it immensely. It's part of my life and my husband's life as well. My husband's here with me today, and I don't know if he wants to say a few words or not.
No. Okay.
But in any event, Will, it's nice to see you again. And I look forward to continuing on. We're looking forward to the goats coming up as well. We're doing the solar suitcases right now. And we're off and running there, I think. So
Thank you.
I keep on their tail all the time, and they never say no to me. So it's a wonderful parish to be involved in. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you so much, Sue. And thank you to the parish for organizing the little show that we know that Sue's there with friends. So thank you.
Yes, they're my parish family.
All right.
Very nice to have them.
And Michelle can quickly show the certificate that will be coming your way, Sue. So thank you so much. Here it is.
Coming in the mail.
It will be, yes, it'll be delivered by mail.
It's lovely. Thank you kindly.
You're very welcome. Okay, nominating committee.
I'll turn it over to my co-chair of today's.
Okay, Mark, thank you.
Thanks, Dan, for that excellent presentation. As a member of the nominations committee, I wish to thank all 4 of the board members who will be sadly leaving PWRDF. I'd like to thank Bishop Jenny Anderson, Dan Waterston, Mike McKenzie, and Verna Firth. I've not worked directly with Bishop Anderson before, but I know many of you have spoken about her strong commitment to PWRDF in the many areas of her work. But I have worked with Dan, Mike, and Verna, and I've always been incredibly impressed with their passionate support of PWRDF. I've been involved in a lot of NGOs in the past, and I've only worked with Dan and Mike briefly for a year, but everyone that I've been involved with have said that they are excellent volunteers. I mean, long-time commitment to the association, and I've been very impressed with them and what they've done. So again, thank you very much for everything you've done. On behalf of the nominations committee, I want to thank all of them for their work and wish them all the best in the future. Do we have perhaps time for both Dan and Mike to say a few words? I don't think Bishop Anderson or Verna Firth are on the call. So would Mike and Dan like to say a few words?
We'll just have to keep moving, but yes, please.
A few words.
Go ahead, Dan.
I've had my chance so many times, so it's over to Mike.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Mike.
I'll keep this brief just to say thank you to everyone. It's been a real honor to be part of Youth Council for the last 5 years and then the Board of Directors for the last 3. So thanks to all youth council members for their support in making this the exceptional experience that it was. And thanks to all board members as well for being so welcoming and being so open to what our group has to offer to the organization. So thanks to everyone. It's not goodbye, it's just farewell from this role. So thank you all.
Yes.
Well said, Mike, and I'll say the same. I hope to hang around as a volunteer, no longer the well-paid board member.
We pay you in thanks, Dan. Thank you, both Mike and Dan, and back over to you, Valerie.
Okay, thank you so much to the nominating committee for the work that you've done. There are a couple motions that in yours that I would like just to make sure that we acknowledge. One, there's the motion that the election ballots be destroyed or deleted. As they're electronic, we need to delete them some way. That has been moved by Mark and second by David. We all voted through Election Buddy, and I can report that that motion has been carried. Leave it to the staff. The other motion that was put forward by Murray and second by John Clark was that the PWRDF board extend great thanks to Dan, Bishop Jenny, Mike and Berna for their many years of gracious service to PWRDF and best wishes for the future. Again, that's another motion that we voted on earlier. It was carried, so thank you. At this time, I would just like to thank everyone that took part, put their names forward to be elected to the board. I want to thank the sponsors of those nominees for their time and commitment of writing up and putting forth their names. And we're very grateful to all, for your continuing support of PWRDF. Thank you for doing that. We hope that we look forward to working with these new people. I also would like to thank Susan for all her wonderful contributions. And just to let you know that you are in a very small elite group. There are only 17 honorary associates with PWRDF. And we're so glad that you have committed so much of your time to PWRDF in such creative and wonderful ways that have sparked so much interest, I know, in the Maritimes. So thank you for that. On another note, one of our honorary associates, Hugh Chambers, who was very committed to PWRDF, passed away this year. And we send condolences to his family. All right, we now have, I hope, joining us, a guest speaker. Rudelmar is joining us, I believe.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, good. Thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't find you on the screen. Welcome, Rudelmar, and we're really pleased to have you here. Rudelmar is the General Secretary of ACT Alliance, one of our valued partners and in relief and development. We used to call it churches acting together. And we're really looking forward to hearing from you. I'm going to turn it over to Will now to introduce you with a proper introduction. And over to you, Will.
Thank you, Valerie, and thank you everyone here on our Zoom, as well as those who are watching on YouTube. Just really briefly, I am so glad that Rudelmar Bueno de Faria is able to join us. He is, as Valerie said, the General Secretary of the ACT Alliance. It's a membership group that we're so proud to be a part of as PWRDF, as Rudelmar will share. It's a coalition of 137 churches and faith-based organizations working together in humanitarian development and advocacy work in over 120 countries around the world. Rudelmar has served with the World Council of Churches as a representative to the United Nations. He has worked with Lutheran World Service. He has a rich background and so much experience. Rudelmar is very active, not just in the ecumenical conversation, but also in the interfaith, multi-faith conversation. He may share a bit about that. We are so fortunate. And a recent appointment of which we are all able to benefit is being a member of the COVAX Facility Engagement Group representing civil society, and how important that is when we look at vaccine equity and the really good work that the ACT Alliance and Rudelmar himself has done. So we're really pleased, Rudelmar, that you've made time in your evening on a Friday night where you are to join us and share. Please do, as you're listening, if you have questions or things for clarity that you'd like to share, please note those. And then afterwards, we'll try to have some time for a facilitated conversation. Rudelmar has lots of good things to share with us. And please do get some questions ready, and we'll have a conversation after Rudelmar shares. So Rudelmar, I'll pass it back to you. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Will. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in this moment. I know that this is being broadcasted also through YouTube, so people from around the world may be seeing. It's given me a pleasure to address the Primates World Relief and Development Fund annual general meeting. And I thank for the invitation to share information, but also to exchange some insight with you today. I will speak about 10 minutes and then to engage in conversation with you. But at the same time, I become very excited because there are so many things to exchange, to share. But I will try to be very focused in sharing a little bit more about the ACT Alliance, Action by Churches Together, and then some of the issues that are concerning not only ACT Alliance, but humanity as a whole. So it's important for us to start saying that PWRDF is a founding member of the ACT Alliance. It's not a partner, but it's a member, and which is today the world's largest Protestant and Orthodox network of churches and church-related organizations like PWRDF, working together in humanitarian development and advocacy, as Will mentioned. As an alliance, we are operating in more than 125 countries, and with 137 members, we have more now, which are international, regional, and national organizations. It's not only a class of members, it's also including national organizations, actually the majority. And in our structure, we have also national forums that are comprised of ACT members, all them, the international, national, and regional, but also the National Council of Churches. They are invited to be part of the discussions we are having in all the countries, and to work together to try to implement, to maximize our action together in humanitarian and development work. I mentioned that we are majority membership comprised of Global South organizations. We have 73% of our membership coming from the Global South. And the ACT Alliance is one of the most influential faith-based networks in the world today. And that is important for you to know, and I will explain why. And especially influential in the multilateral global platforms, the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, which in the past we have not dedicated too much attention to this part. But as Christians, we cannot shy away from this responsibility we have. And just for you to have an idea, I will list very briefly some of the spaces we have a presence. The ACT, I'm on the co-chair also of the United Nations Multi-Faith Advisory Council, which comprises of 27 UN agencies and 40 plus religious leaders and different religious organizations. We are also member of the UN Steering Committee for the implementation of the Plan of Action for Religious Leaders to Prevent Violence or Incite to Violence. We are member of the UN High Commission on the Nairobi Summit that is implementing the International Conference on Population and Development. We are also a member of the MNC engagement group, that is of the COVAX facility, member of the advisory board for the Humanitarian Encyclopedia, and member of the Generation Equality Forum of the UN Women, that is dealing with the Beijing Plus 25 and all the issues related to gender, and also a member of the Security Council Working Group at the United Nations. We have influence on the member states that are members of the Security Council on issues related to our humanitarian work and protection at different countries. Why I'm saying all that? I'm saying that because that is also a result of your work as PWRDF, because you are part of the ACT. You have been a founding member. You have contributed for us to reach the space that we have today. And our joint work globally addresses the most critical issues that are affecting humanity, which are also highlighted in your organizational agenda. I saw some of your documents and the websites of you, such as humanitarian assistance, climate change, gender justice, migration and displacement, and peace and human security. All these are the 5 major topics that we are dealing as well as ACT Alliance with all the members involved in that. And that is in a practical way. We are not just producing policies and ways of working. We are delivering as ACT Alliance with support of PWRDF. And that is important for us to know. But it's important that to note that we cannot address all these areas that I have mentioned without framing them in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has surfaced and exacerbated the dysfunctionalities of a normal that was already in crisis in most of our societies, especially the shocking economic and social inequalities and the persistent discriminations such as racism, xenophobia, homophobia, and misogyny. It had and continued to have implications for humanity and societies, for the families, for the churches, but also organizations like PWRDF. I'm sure that you have discussed that in your meeting today. And the rapid and changing political, social, and cultural economic context have posed challenges to humanity, an organization that strives to uphold human rights, to promote justice, and also to address inequalities in the world today. And one of the points that we are seeing increasingly emerging everywhere is the confluence of religious, political, and economic fundamentalism. And this is, at a certain extent, redefining values in our families, in our societies, in our organizations. This confluence is realigning institutions and also undermining human rights and human dignity, pushing peoples and nations to very dangerous positions. And you know, we have cases. I'm Brazilian, and you probably are accompanying what's going on in my own country. And that is very scary. As the COVID-19 pandemic shows in all countries, health and wellness follow a social gradient. The lower the socioeconomic position, the worse the health. And the differentiated and intersectional impacts become much more glaring when we zoom into specific issues as those that I have mentioned: climate change, gender justice, or migration and displacement. And many humanitarian catastrophes today around the world are increasingly related to climate change. You know, climate-induced migration is one of the big happenings. And climate change is also a key driver of poverty, as we know, and an inhibitor for sustainable development, causing loss of lives, income, and damage to properties, exacerbating population displacement and conflicts. So that is one aspect. But another one that's very serious is the issue of lack of food. We know that nearly 10% of everyone on Earth were undernourished in 2020, according to the UN reports. As the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted economies, job markets, and supply chains, and also inflated food prices. And even more people are experiencing moderate or severe food insecurity today, meaning that they do not consistently have access to the food they need every day. And people who experiences hunger for several years, especially children, are more likely to die before reaching maturity. And those who survive may face many health and cognitive disadvantages that continues throughout their lives. And that I'm not saying things, that's based by evidence as well. And another area that is important for us as Christians and faith-based organizations to address is gender inequalities. And that remains a huge problem despite of the progress that we had in the last years. Even before the COVID-19, domestic violence, for instance, was already one of the greatest human rights violations. And as pandemic continues, the number of cases is likely to grow with multiple impacts on women's and girls' well-being, their sexual and reproductive health, their mental health, and their ability to participate and lead in the recovery of our societies and economies. And in addition, the achieved gains that we had in the 2-3 decades on women's and children's rights are also under increasing threat now. You know, we have many governments and groups that are pushing back these advancements in these areas, especially gender equality. And as churches and church-related organizations engage in humanitarian development and advocacy work, as you, we are appalled by the vaccine apartheid created by profit-seeking behavior and self-serving practices that undermine equal access to the vaccines. Will mentioned that I'm representing ACT Alliance in the COVAX facility. I'm a little bit shocked, despite of the good intentions behind how humanity is losing completely some of the values that we preserve very much as Christians. We believe that the global community can and must do more to save lives, to improve the well-being of all human beings, promote peace, and ensure the realization of all human rights. There is a lot that can be done. And it's not lack of money, it's lack of sometimes political will, but it's much more complex to address all the intersections. And despite the efforts of the international community to produce vaccines in a record time, that's amazing how far we went, and to create principles and mechanisms for equitable access and distribution of vaccines, like the COVAX, we are observing still a shameful moral and political failure to reverse the vaccine divide, and also to ensure no one is left behind. That is one of the mottos of the Sustainable Development Agenda of the United Nations. And Canada is known globally, everybody speaks about that, especially in this COVAX facility, for having bought vaccines enough to vaccinate its population up to 5 times. We have also cases that some rich countries have vaccinated up to 70% of their population. And in Africa, only 2% were vaccinated. That we cannot accept as Christians. We need to do something. And we know that vaccine access is an unprecedented issue with deep ethical underpinnings. And the deepening of inequalities during the COVID pandemic, and more recently with the inequalities related to the unfair distribution of the vaccines, it's increasing the divide between rich and poor, but also it's exacerbating the inequalities in all corners of the planet. And to address that, we need to address the root causes of injustice, vulnerability, poverty, and it's crucial that all people's human rights are upheld. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for us to move forward as humanity. And for Christians, that means we have a special way of understanding that. It means to be prophetic in prophetic voice, prophetic actions, denouncing injustices, but also announcing the good news. And the good news is the work, the diaconal work, the social work that we are doing, motivated by our faith. And the potential of interfaith, multi-religious collaboration, as Will mentioned, that is important. And I know that based on our engagement, this task is very huge. We have seen the distinctive advantage in our collaboration with other faith actors in our humanitarian or development work, peace building work, for instance, being in the MENA region in the Middle East or in Asia, by partnering with Muslims, with Buddhists, with Hindu, Baha'is. And another example is also within the wider ecumenical family. We are working in protracted crises such as Sudan, where we have a very long-standing collaboration and joint programming with Caritas Internationalis from the Catholic Church. And we are working in Darfur with them. And in the current environment, the distinctive advantage of faith actors and faith-based organizations in pandemic context is clearly seen. We have the experiences of the Ebola crisis in West Africa. That was because of the religious leaders, because of the organizations, the faith-based organizations, that the pandemic stopped. When the religious leaders play their role in terms of helping people to change their behaviors and also traditional ways of burials. And we are seeing again our niche demonstrated in addressing needs in the areas of protection, psychosocial support, and gender-based violence. In addition, of course, to the traditional work that we do as an alliance for the humanitarian assistance. However, from my experiences working basically in all continents, I have worked in more than 90 countries, not living in all the 90, but playing regular travels and working in more than 90 countries around the world. I can say that never the international humanitarian organizations will be able to effectively respond to humanitarian crisis if they do not partner or if they are not connected with national organizations to deliver the work, to understand the context and many other elements associated to the response, especially in the moment in which the space for international humanitarian organizations is shrinking everywhere because of the COVID, the pandemic, but also because of political elements as well. And that is the advantage, and I think that PWRDF also is taking advantage of that, because you are working to the ACT Alliance with your partners directly in the countries. They are the first responders. Another area that I would like very briefly to share with you is the need to advocate for youth engagement in all these issues, because youth are full of innovative ideas on how to track poverty, discrimination, lack of opportunities, and inequalities. They have an inherent tactical approach with respect to human rights and also environment. They are actively engaging in sustainable ideas. They are having open to these more inclusive and more open ways of working as well. And we have to help them to occupy these spaces in their communities, organizations, in the society, to contribute for a world that is more sustainable, inclusive, and that respects human dignity and human rights. On the other hand, it's up to us, leaders, and from our organizations, to open these spaces for young people. I'm very happy to see around the screen here a lot of young people even representing the board. That is, congratulations for that. Yeah, but not many organizations and governments as well offer young people the possibilities to engage, less even for them to try to take responsibilities on projects and programs. And this needs to be changed. Youth needs to have in mind also that their education is the turning point to start turning everything around, because young people like to do that. Without proper education and training, it will be difficult to make changes for the future of people and our planet. And the youth must organize themselves to engage in global, regional, and country level actions to address that. And that is happening anyway. Therefore, I think that is critically for faith actors as you, as the ACT Alliance, to engage in ecumenical and multi-faith inspired political and programmatic spaces, to engage with youth, to engage in partnerships that mobilize the moral and ethical imperative for global solidarity with people and communities affected by injustices, not only by disasters. We are in a key position as faith-based organizations to act on injustices, because we know that religious leaders and organizations play a central role in the lives of ordinary people everywhere, being as norm setters, moral compasses, legislators, and advocate at national and international level. We know that around 84% of the entire population connect themselves with a kind of faith or religion. There are estimations on that. And we know that sometimes the religious leaders, they are much more influential than the authorities in many countries, the governors, the presidents, etc. So to address the root causes of injustice, vulnerability, and also the poverty, it's crucial to engage in coordinated advocacy for justice and dignity in all levels, national, regional, and global. Because the transformational and sustainable development, it's about taking action together so that all people's human rights are upheld. We will not be able to do that alone. It's very difficult. Even ACT Alliance believing that we will be able to address all the topics alone, that's not possible. That's why we have a global alliance. That's why we are connecting with the UN. That's why we are connecting with other religions. That's why you are working also with the private sector. Despite that's one of the issues that sometimes is much more controversial than even other topics like gender. And the important thing for fostering partnership with different stakeholders is an urgent need rather than an option for faith communities. As we enter in a unique window after the COVID-19 of opportunity to build a new social contract that honors the dignity of every human being, we cannot ignore the opportunity for faith communities to offer insights to help inform all those that are determining the future of humanity, those that are responsible for decision-making, for creating policies. And that is why ACT Alliance and you, through the ACT Alliance, have this access to the big decision powers as well. I'm saying we are very much connected with the community. We are providing what is our responsibility as Christians and faith-based organizations, but also we know that we need to address the root causes of injustices, and we need to occupy these spaces to support that in some way. I will stop by here, and I will be very happy to engage in conversation with you and to provide any additional information or questions that you may have in terms of our engagement, our history, and our plans for the future. Thank you very much to all of you.
Rudelmar, thanks incredibly for your sharing and for all the work you do. Just to open it up, if there are some questions, if you want to raise your hand, or if you want to use a little raise hand button on the bottom of the screen, or if you want to put it into the chat. Are there any questions? We have Rudelmar for a few more minutes. Rudelmar is in all kinds of hallways that we are not in. So Murray, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And first, obrigado pela su conversa. Yo puedo hablar poco de español, but I don't really speak Portuguese. I really liked what you said. You know, you really hit the nail on the head in terms of so many issues. But I was especially interested in your comments about the vaccine divide and this huge scandalous discrepancy between how many people in affluent countries like Canada have gotten vaccinated and so few in countries like Africa. And you mentioned the ethical underpinnings of this issue. And I was kind of curious whether you could point to maybe a couple of examples you've seen through your work about where religious leaders and faith groups have been able to address that issue.
Okay, thank you very much. Yo puedo hablar español también. I lived for 7 years in Central America, so that's almost my second mother tongue. Basically, the vaccine divide, we have evidences of that. You know, back in 2020, in June, ACT Alliance, we issued a statement asking for the establishment of a mechanism, global mechanism, under the WHO leadership to ensure that the vaccine will be distributed equitable and also in a just way. That was our dream, and that happened. The creation of the COVAX facilities came. We, you know, there was a call for civil society representation, 2 seats to be in the COVAX facility. We have applied, I have applied, and we have been selected because of our engagement and the role of faith-based organizations in influencing also national governments in terms of vaccine uptake, for instance, or hesitancy. That was one of the big problems and continues to be in some places. But the issue of the ethical underpinnings, we know that humanity is passing by a crossroads. And we are facing, for me, I consider that is a change of era, where we have groups that are dividing in those who are trying to include people and those who are trying to exclude people. Exclude in the sense of promoting the extreme nationalism, that's our culture, that's our space, refugees, others are not welcome. So that's the kind of exclusion, or first myself and then the others. That is the kind of values. And we are facing a big crisis of values. And that is exacerbated by policies, by how governments are undertaking that. And I can see that clearly in the COVAX facility. We have created principles for this mechanism. And those governments that have offered to be part of that, they committed themselves to ensure equity and fair distribution of vaccines. But what is going on now is not exactly what they have committed to. We are seeing many of them going outside of the mechanism, providing vaccines to other countries, sometimes using conditionalities, sometimes because of the political interest or geopolitical interest they may have. That is happening. So I had the opportunity to have a dinner with the Dr. Tedros, who is the Director General of the WHO, and he mentioned about the need to have a global legally binding treaty on the pandemics to make those responsible for not following the rules accountable. We have issued a statement with the ACT Alliance, that was last week or this week actually, where we are calling for a legally binding moral and a mechanism, a treaty, as a moral and legal obligation for all the governments, because they need to become accountable to that. And how we are doing as ACT Alliance, we have from the beginning, we are engaging with all our members. This week is happening, or next week is happening in Africa, a meeting with all the religious leaders from ACT Alliance and National Council of Churches to prepare them, to equip them to advocate at national level or community level to ensure that the vaccine it's distributed equally and in a fair way. And that we are bringing, of course, in our spaces at the UN, where we can influence. That is an example, and that's happened in all the regions. MENA region, Africa, Asia, Latin America, in Europe as well. We are preparing and equipping our members. In North America, there was a meeting as well, if I'm not mistaken, on the same topic. So that is the way. The moral, is how people, we need to do something. It's an issue of values. And I believe that as faith-based organizations, we need to use our Christian values as an example of, as Jesus was doing, not as new theologies that we see, especially in my country, in Brazil, where they are completely excluding people. So it's a very complex issue. There are many elements and variants and gradients of the ethical dimensions, but that is it's a long issue to discuss because it's connected with this confluence of fundamentalisms.
Thanks.
Thanks, Murray. Hey, thanks, Rudelmar. I'm just going to ask Sophie Kiwala. She had a question in the chat. Sophie, you're on unmute. You want to just share your good question?
Yes, thank you, Will, and thank you so much, Rudelmar, for such an excellent presentation. It really was most informative. The question I'm asking is about how to advocate on social media. It's so disconcerting to see at times that a very lighthearted post with sitting in the square with my husband, having a cookie and a coffee gets over 200 hits and likes, and a PWRDF post talking about vaccine equity or A Light for Every Birth or one of the many programs that we're involved in might get less than 10. And, we struggle to penetrate the soundbite attention span that's out there. Do you have any suggestions on how we might better do that, how we might better frame our advocacy through social media?
Yeah, that is one of, I agree with you in terms of that, because I started in Twitter, for instance, more recently, and sometimes if I go to those that are disseminating fake news, they have millions of followers, and those organizations that are dealing, even the UN, if you go to the UN, the heads of, they don't have so many followers. So we have a problem here, how the people like to, social media, sometimes it's more focused on the sensationalistic approach rather than the issues. We need to find innovative ways how we will communicate, and that is the role for the young people in our organization to do, because they have very imaginative ways of doing that. That is one of the ways that we are doing, but also using the network. For instance, if you will have a strategy, and also our director of communication is from Canada. He's based in Toronto, and he worked for you, as I understood, Simon Chumber. And with Simon, we already discussed that we need to have a strategy to engage with our members, because we have 137 members. Many of them, they are very well connected with the social media, with the capacity for communications. How we will do that as an ACT Alliance, that ACT Alliance will support its members, and the members will support the ACT Alliance. Because sometimes using social media, for instance, I receive a call from one of the journalists, investigative journalists from the UK that provides news to BBC, to The Guardian, asking for interviewing me about our position as civil society on the COVAX facility. And she got that because of our statement on the social media. So we need just to find the strategy to locate that. I would like to do that more. I love this, but of course, sometimes that is not the priority considering the status of the world today and also my responsibilities. But that's something that we need I don't have an answer for you, Sophie, but some ideas, and that's very important. I will take note and discuss that with Simon as well.
Thank you.
And I think Simon is watching on YouTube with others as well, Rudelmar. So he's maybe has
Simon, you know what you need to talk next.
Right. Other questions? We may have a few minutes, or maybe space for maybe one or two more questions. maybe I can ask one question then, and then maybe we can just say thank you at that point. But Rudelmar, you are in many places that are just so important in the United Nations and interfaith conversations. You just last week were in an important conversation, and this year has been a really difficult one. And you've just highlighted just how much more difficult it is in countries such as in Africa or in Asia or in the Americas, including in Brazil, where you are from. How tragic. But what are there one or two things that still give you some hope for the hard work of collaboration, the hard work of interfaith work together, the hard work in fighting for human rights? Are there one or two kind of areas of hope that maybe you could just share with us?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Will. You know, the motto of our global strategy is hope in action, putting people first. That is our motto. That you have contributed, Will, to build this strategy as well, because that was built by the members themselves. And I believe that we are seeing signs in humanity that's positive to make changes. Let's take the youth climate movement, for instance. How they have pushed, how they have engaged, how they have changed, how they are pushing now. We will see the COP26 in Glasgow now in November, how much we can advance on that. The mobilization, the youth, the social mobilization is fundamental. That is a sign of hope. Another area is about the movement globally in terms against the racism. We know the Black Lives Matters, but also how that has expanded to different levels where you are pushing very strong elements that are completely dividing societies and people and families because of the discrimination, racial discrimination. So there are very positive spaces that we believe that's possible to change. We see also the role of one of the aspects that I mentioned, that despite there is a pushback, we have advanced in terms of gender equalities. Gender-based violence is not an issue that people are hiding anymore. We are seeing that in societies, even in that very close ones, the people are standing up, speaking out, and acting. So there are so many elements that are important. And that is, as faith-based organization, that should be our fuel, hope, because otherwise we will not have. And if you see all this engagement of people with different religions, you know, everybody in the 80s were saying that the secularism will take over, that religion will be over. And we are seeing the opposite today. Religion never was so important for the people as is today. And it was not so important as now for the UN and the multilateral as well. Now they want to engage with faith-based organizations. And then we need to have this prophetic and action and voice to play this role. I see lots of hopes in every work that we do. The work that you are doing here, I accompany a little bit of your last discussions about the finances, and it's amazing the engagement, the voluntary work, the engagement that you have. That's signs of hopes that we see everywhere. In Africa, people engage. It's amazing. I see much more hope than depressive or elements. I'm just listing them because we need to know about them, but I'm very positive that we will be, that we are in the right track to change humanity for the good.
Rudelmar, hey, thanks so very much. And the hope in faith leaders from different faiths coming together is so important. You highlighted Ebola, and when faith leaders came together to bring the stigma down of Ebola, it just made the work of public health so much more possible. We were involved as PWRDF. We were also involved in bringing down the stigma of HIV some many years ago, still important today, but when faith leaders come together, people do listen. It's powerful, and I know that's so important for you personally and professionally. Liz had a good question on vaccine equity or inequity. And then another of our participants, Betty from the Yukon, just also highlighted how important it is to advocate with our politicians And I know that question from Liz came just as you were responding to that, just how important that is. So Liz, thanks for that question. Betty, thanks for that comment and for many other good thoughts and appreciations for Rudelmar. Maybe I'll pass it back to Valerie, but maybe if we can give a big thanks to Rudelmar again for coming in after a long day of many other gatherings and workshops and meetings and on his Friday evening. So maybe we can just thank Rudelmar very much for your time with us.
Thank you very much. And I hope to meet you personally someday.
Someday soon, right. Rudelmar, you're welcome to stay. We're just going to finish with prayer, but that's up to you. But I'll pass it back to Valerie. Valerie,
I will join for you for the prayer.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rudelmar. That was so wonderful, a great message, and yes, we have to work together and yeah, get this done, change minds and ideas. We are at the end of our meeting, and I just wanted to thank everybody for joining. I also want to acknowledge that in our election, there were two people I'm remiss in missing, and they were successful. We have a new youth rep, Charlotte, and we welcome her. And we also have a new rep that was elected from the Anglican Council of Indigenous People, Dorothy, and we welcome both of you to our board of directors, which will have a meeting in about 15 minutes. But at this time, we're closing up the 8 p.m. And I just want to thank everyone for joining, as I said, and the staff and Michelle for putting this all together, and all of you for joining and taking part. So wonderful. I'm going to ask now Basil to close the meeting with a prayer.
Lord be with you.
And also with you.
With you.
Also with you.
Dear Lord, we give thanks for your presence with us today, as we have heard good reports of the work of the Primates World Relief and Development Fund and celebrated its support by Canadian Anglicans. We give thanks for awareness of how our work has contributed to and gained strength from that of the ACT Alliance. We honor those who are now leaving the work of the board, diocesan representative, and youth council to follow other pursuits. And we celebrate the time they spent with us and the considerable gifts they brought. We ask that you will remain alongside the men and women who have been chosen to be leaders for this coming year, and that together with our staff, we may all work steadfastly to the glory of your name, and may hold fast to our vision of a truly just, healthy, and peaceful world. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Basil. Is there any other business? Hearing none, I'd like to adjourn the annual general meeting of PWRDF at 11:50 a.m. Pacific, and wish you all well and have a good evening, good day, and best wishes. Bye now.